All right, everybody. Back with some football commentary for you. I got a great guest for you. His name is Jay, or you might know him as Jesse. Your last name, I forgot. Jesse
It's Naylor. Yeah, Jessie
Naylor.
Naylor. Yeah.
He show you see YouTube channel last second, and he's with me tonight to talk some Niner ball as we get ever closer to the season. So, Jay, if you want to kind of introduce yourself, let people know where to find you, what you do, and then we can get on with this thing.
Yeah, absolutely. So my Twitter handle's right there below, JNay_LSS. You can find me. I've got a YouTube channel with a couple friends of mine called Last Second Sports. And then I also write a little bit for 49ers All Sports Illustrated. And yeah, man, I'm ready to talk some ball with you. Appreciate you having me on.
Thank you for thank you for coming on, because it's kind of a hit or miss thing sometimes. You ask people and you either get no response, or you said you would come on, and I appreciate it very much. I've gotten to talk with a lot of people in the community, Eric Crocker, Jason Aponte, yourself, the Locked On 49ers guy, Brian Peacock. And these are all, I just took a shot. I like to learn more, because I don't know it all. And there's people that know a lot more. So I figure, why not help myself with my own knowledge of my team that I love, and have people on that can teach me a thing or two, so.
Yeah, I think that's what's great about our community, Aaron, is that I think, as I've reached out to people, and obviously we've grown pretty quick and I'm happy about that. But, as I've reached out to people, everybody's been very nice. And one thing about me is, I'm not able to catch every show, but I subscribe to everybody that I know in the community that
Right.
puts out shows. And, if I can take an hour out of my time to come on somebody else's show, I'll definitely do that, because I think a lot of people have shown me support when they didn't necessarily have to. And I think that that's what's great about our community, is that we all genuinely are rooting for each other. And there's so much space here. Everybody's so different. Everybody's knowledge level is so different. The way that everybody looks at the game or approaches the game is so different. And I love it. If you go into other communities, I've reached out to other communities and had people on, and the communities just are not as diverse as ours is. You've got the Cowboys community, which has a lot of stations or podcasts out there, but outside of them and the 49ers, there's really not a lot out there for some of these teams. And I think that we're very blessed. And, maybe I'm not your cup of tea, but Aaron is, or vice versa. And I think that's what makes us great. So,
yeah, it's, I'm just trying to, I just try to carve out my own little niche. I work a regular job. And 2 years ago, I thought about making a YouTube channel. I watch guys like Grant. I watch guys like Nothing But Niners. And I'm like, I want to do something like that, just give my opinion. If people like it, great. If they don't, I'm not a combative guy. I'm more crazy when I watch football by myself than I am when I'm on here. On here, I try to be as open-minded and kind of neutral. But when I watch football, I'm a psychopath. So
yeah,
that's why I do it alone. And a lot of times people are like, hey, let's go to a game. I'm like, I don't know if I could do it, man. I would be suffering the whole time, because I live and breathe. I live and die for the Niners, man. I'm that hardcore. So I figure we get into it with the giant elephant in the room, which is the Trey Lance, Jimmy Garoppolo, who's going to start. There was a little clip going around where, Jimmy looks like the cat who ate the canary when asked if he has an idea. I've been back and forth on this in my brain. Part of me says go with the Rook, but when I watch him in the preseason, I can still see the rawness and in the when they say he's played in a Division II school and all that and all those things that go into it. So I've been back and forth on it, and honestly, I want to say that I think Jimmy would be the best bet, but I want Jimmy to prove me right, because he looks like more of the same, like what I've seen from him in the past, but maybe that's just a preseason jitters and he's working out the kinks, and hopefully he can, calm me down a little bit, play well, and let the Rook kind of, organically work himself into this thing. So, I mean, what's your opinion on the situation?
Yeah, listen, I've been I've been probably the most bullish person that I know of in the community, saying that Trey was going to start week 1. I said that since the draft, and I really thought that he was going to be the draft pick, and fortunately I was lucky and got that one right. But
Mm-hmm.
you know, if I'm just being honest, it doesn't look like I'm going to get this one right. And it looks like I'm going to have to take a little bit of an L on this one. And that's okay. At the end of the day, I just want the 49ers to win games, right? You talked about being a diehard fan, and I'm the exact same way. Covering the team in this light, I've definitely changed a little bit in the sense that I don't think that I'll live and die by games the way that I normally used to. But it definitely means a lot to me, that the 49ers are a good team, and I'm always going to root for them. And it's just the way that it is. But here's what I will say. I think it was definitely an open competition, and anybody that says that it wasn't is kind of fooling themselves. And the way that I see it is, I think last week was really the week where Shanahan put Trey out there and said, go out here and win this job, Rook. And he didn't do it. Think about this. I don't know if you're a boxing guy or a mixed martial arts guy, but when there's a champion fighter, they always say that in order to win the belt, you have to beat the champion, right? It cannot be a razor thin fight. You have to go out there and finish the champion. If it goes to the judges, most likely the champion's going to retain his belt. And that's the way that I look at this quarterback position. Jimmy was the incumbent starter. He was meant to be the starter. In order for Trey to take that job, he has to go and fully rip it from him. And although he's shown glimpses, he hasn't shown that he should be that full-time starter enough to take that job away from Jimmy. Let's not forget that Jimmy's making $27 million. It's going to be hard game one to put that on the bench and say, this is our backup, right? The team knows that he's brought him, or that he's gone to a Super Bowl with them. And so it's a tough decision to just sit him. The job has to be outright taken. And I think Trey's opportunity was this last weekend. And although he showed a lot of great flashes, he didn't rip that job away from Jimmy. And that's where we're sitting right now.
Definitely. You can see the inconsistency, and you could see the ability for sure.
Yep.
But I felt like he was, the last two times he's been out there, he's been playing kind of fast. I feel like he's not settled. I wouldn't say nervous or scared. Just a person who hasn't played football in 500 days until he took a snap. Right. I feel like he's, I don't think he's feeling the pressure. I don't think he's, like I said, scared. I just think there's, he's just trying to soak it all in right now. And, the NFL's fast, even the backups are fast. And you can see what's there. He's like this piece of coal that just, eventually he's going to hopefully turn into a diamond. But, right now he's still, I see glimpses of man, this dude could be electric. But then I also see where, he could have thrown at least 3 or 4 interceptions in the preseason. So it's I just wish Jimmy was more assertive with the job, and the turnovers is something that has always bugged me about Jimmy. It's almost like you can't go one game without him throwing at least 1 to 2 interceptions. And it bothers the living crap out of me, because it's like he keeps us in the game, but he also keeps the other team in the game. And kind of what looks like by now with Trey's kind of a little bit in that same boat too, where he's keeping the other team in the game too. So I feel going with Jimmy is the right move right now. But if they work him in like they say they're going to, and he shows things that, that he can be of value to this team, hopefully eventually, if it isn't this year, it's definitely going to be next year. And I just don't see Jimmy retaining his position on this team, especially with that contract. But, I just want the 49ers to win and be competitive, and maybe get into the playoffs and make a run at this thing. Whether they win it or not this year is, irrelevant to me, because I think Tampa's still the team to beat until somebody knocks off Tom Brady. But I just want to see a successful 49er year where they're not completely destroyed by injuries. That's kind of the injuries to me. Me and my nephew are very, not pessimistic. We're just very it's hard for us to get super excited, because the injuries the last couple of years have just decimated this team. And it's it's hard to get yourself immersed knowing that you're half your, 4 or 5 of your best players are not out there. And it's it's the health is the most important thing this year. I think number one, and then second is Jimmy playing well. And if those two things do good, then I think the Niners are going to have a real shot at, getting into the playoffs and maybe making a run at it.
Yeah, I think you bring up some good points. So the one that you ended on, you talked about the injuries, and as a fan, I don't know if you do this, but I find myself, even as games, as they're winding down, right? The game's over, the 49ers have it in hand. It's like there's a game within a game, and I'm hanging on the edge of my seat, watching every play with intent,
Mm-hmm.
as if it's a game winner, hoping that there's no injury. Like,
But no
okay,
one
did
gets up
anybody get
slow,
injured there?
like every time.
Right. Yeah. And so I'm like, okay, well, okay, he limped off the field. Is he okay? Now all of a sudden my mind's worried about, well, is he going to be able to play next game? And if not, who's going to fill in? What's that going to look like? So I think there's a game within the game. And then, talking about Jimmy, I just said that Lance didn't come in and rip the job from him, but I think you made a great point. It's not like Jimmy came in and like took the job either, right? If it was a real competition and both these guys were brought in, Jimmy was brought in from another team and Lance was drafted, I think that Lance actually would have been the starter.
Yep.
And I think that would have been a no-brainer, but because Jimmy was already on this team, the team has familiarity with him. He didn't do enough to win the job either, but because he was already the guy that was in that spot, he's just going to stay there by default. And so that's what worries me too is,
Yes.
you said it. It's more likely than not that regardless of whether Jimmy starts or Trey starts, they're not going to win a Super Bowl this year. So what does that mean? You've got Trey Lance on 4 years being inexpensive to this team, which means you can really beef up the rest of this roster.
Yep.
So now if Trey doesn't start this year because you wanted to start Jimmy, well, Jimmy's not going to be there next year. And you've just taken a fourth away from Trey as far as learning out of these 4 years, which means now it's not going to be until year 3 that he really hits his stride instead of year 2. And you've cut this window in half. That's what worries me.
Yeah. I wish Trey, I kind of expected this with Trey though. Like I'll be honest with you. Like I wanted to, in my mind, I just knew that the jump of 2 levels, the time off, just everything about it, it was gonna take him some time. So I don't know. Maybe he'll just, as the season goes on, just transform, and then eventually, they'll see him in practice. Maybe Jimmy's not totally blowing the doors off with everybody, and they give the kid a shot. Maybe he does something to change the coach's mind. My thing is, like you said, I want Jimmy to kind of like take this thing and, take this job and like win it, just so we could say, okay, we have the kid, in the background, waiting, and we have a great starter and all that. But Jimmy just, one of the guys in the comments says, how is it his 8th season and he still makes the same mistakes? And I'm like, exactly. Like, that's the thing that really irritates me. I get so frustrated, and he's so jovial and smiley and looking and all that stuff. And it just like, aren't you mad? Like that's why I love Tom Brady, because as much as Montana was the man and Montana didn't really show people up, I love quarterbacks that rip into guys. I love seeing that competitive fire, and I don't see that with Jimmy, and that's the one thing that really gets to me. But who knows? The Niners possibly could have a really good run game this year with a really deep backfield. The receivers stay healthy. And if the defense plays well, maybe they can carry this team like they did that year in 2019, and Jimmy just has to stay out of the way. I don't think that's always going to be a likely thing, but hopefully that's what happens this year.
Yeah, but let me ask you this, Aaron. What do you think? I mean, if you can build a game plan around Jimmy and all of his flaws, isn't it likely that you can build a game plan around Lance and all of his flaws?
I've said this a million times.
Right.
How can you not construct an offense for a rook if you can do it for a guy with so many limitations?
Yep.
You pretty much are creating his success by how you call plays or the type of, whatever formations, whatever you're doing. Kyle Shanahan has a lot to do with Jimmy's success and how, the things that he can do on the field. And I felt like if you put Jimmy in another situation, I don't think he's nearly as successful personally. So, but, this looks like the hand we're being dealt. Hopefully Jimmy just turns it on in the regular season and the running game is good and the defense plays well and we don't have to worry about it for a while. But, the likeliness of that happening is probably pretty low, but hopefully it is what happens. So
for sure.
What are you looking at? Because I was mistaken. I thought this 3 game preseason, that the third game was like the sit down game, but I guess the third game is the mock regular season, kind of like the get everybody in there and let everybody do their thing. What are you looking for in this game? You just looking for everybody to kind of stay healthy and, pretty much get off the field when they need to? Or are
Yeah,
you
I mean,
having any particular battles or players that you're watching?
yeah, I mean, I would just like to see everybody get a little bit of burn, right? Like, I hope it's not one of those situations where it's like, okay, well, all of our starters except for Kittle, Bosa, Ford, Trent Williams, like they're not going to play. Like, I want everybody to
Mm-mm.
get a little something, and I want the team to get in a little bit of a rhythm, right? If Jimmy's going to be the guy, let's see him out there with all of his weapons. He hasn't been able to see that yet during this
Nope.
preseason. So let's see that happen. Let's see him out there with all of his weapons. Let's give him a quarter to just get a rhythm going and kind of build some momentum so that this season really does start off with a bang. That's what I would definitely like to see. And, also this roster soon is going to go from 80 to 53. So what does that mean? I mean, we can talk about the wide receiver position, for example. We know that there's 5 guys that are going to make this team, but who's the 6th? Do they keep a 7th guy? If they do keep a 7th guy, where's that roster spot lost at? So there's just so many things that need to be answered throughout this game. And so early on, yeah, I'll be looking to see how Jimmy plays, how this offense looks. Obviously, when Trey plays, I'll be interested in that. But beyond that, all those fringe roster spots I'll be looking for, whether it's at corner, whether it's at receiver, safety now, if Tart is in fact back, who loses a spot there? Who can we sneak onto the practice squad? So there's a lot to look for in this game for sure. And real quick, if you don't mind, I wanted to address Jay here. He's been throwing out a lot of things, and Jay, I appreciate it. I know that you've supported me. I've seen you on my channel and whatnot, but you said so many bandwagon fans are trashing Jimmy today on 49er YouTube live streams. And I hate this. I hate this probably more than anything when people come out and say you're a bandwagon fan because you're quote unquote trashing a player. Listen, if pointing out flaws in somebody's game and being a realist is trashing, then I guess we're on different wavelengths here, but I'll say this, my job as a fan is to root for the team on the field when day one comes. And if Jimmy's the quarterback, I'm going to root for him just as much and just as hard as I would have for Trey. Did I think Trey should be the starter? Yes, absolutely. But that's not going to change my opinion and rooting for Jimmy. I'm certainly not going to want him to screw up, because if he does, that means the 49ers aren't winning. Right. And ultimately, it's team before any individual player. And, I'm going to root for whoever's on the field. And that's my job as a fan. Now, up until that point, my job is to give my opinion. And right. I'm definitely going to do that. And whether you're a fan that says, hey, this team, let the coaches in the front office decide what's going on. Or if you're somebody like myself who gives an opinion, is bold in that opinion, and is going to be honest with you in assessing a player, whether you like it or not, it doesn't make me less of a fan. It doesn't make me a bandwagon. I mean, I can show you around this room. I've probably got 30 signatures that are 49er related. My dad got me into the 49ers when I was 6 years old. Like, trust me, I'm as diehard as they come. That being said, I am a different fan than maybe some others who are willing to let the front office do their job. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Me and my nephew are not the type of players or the type of fans that have allegiance to guys. Like, right. If I would have made a channel during the Kaepernick era as it ended, I would have gotten a lot of hate because people would have thought that I had issues with him for other things. My issues with Cap were straight up, dude wasn't good. He couldn't play. Like, he came on hot and then fizzled. And I know I would have gotten hate saying you hate him because of his stance. No, me, it's all about winning and about playing well. And if you're not an asset to this team, I don't have to be a fan of you. And it's my choice. Now, I might go about it kind of nice and try to not step on anybody's toes. My opinion of Jimmy is this. The Niners have already spoken of what they think of Jimmy. They went and they traded away 3 first-rounders to replace him. Jimmy is the starter for now. Trey is the future. And people just need to just accept it because that's what it is. He's not going to be here next year. And if he is, he's not going to be making nearly the money he's making, and if that gets people to hate me, I've gotten some hate too for my stances on Jimmy. People are like, you pick on him a lot. I'm like, I'm sorry. I'm just speaking how I feel. That's the whole point of you have content and you make content on YouTube or on whatever. You have an opinion. If you're not allowed to have an opinion, then what are you doing? Why are you making any content to begin with? So
Yeah.
I just want to shout out 49ers Ultimate Report for the $2 super chat. Thank you very much, man. You've been a huge support of my channel. And I love seeing the little blue box on there with the super chats. That's never a bad thing. I guess I'll ask you straight up about this one, because this one, to me, I feel like I already got the answer just by other guys playing well. But does Jaylen Hurd make this team?
I don't think so. I really don't think so. And I think what's cool about the Hurd situation is if he doesn't make this team, I think that he can be snuck onto the practice squad because he hasn't shown anything to anybody, right? And I think that that's a part of the strategy is, what players do you think you can sneak onto the practice squad and continue to develop, continue to work with? I think that that's a part of it. And Jaylen Hurd showing nothing yet in the NFL, having multiple injuries, I think he's one of those players that you can sneak onto the practice squad, and that's where he should end up. I look at it, right? There's for sure 5 receivers that make this team. We've got Ayuk, we've got Debo, we've got Sanu, Jennings, Sherfield, and then you've got that sixth. That sixth, whether we want to like it or not, is going to be between Benjamin, it's going to be between James, and it's going to be between Simba. And the reason it's between those 3 is because those 3 can be kick/punt returners, right?
Yep.
And
they can
so
offer something else.
Yeah, and so Hurd is not that, and none of those other guys I mentioned are that. Now Ayuk and Debo probably can do that, but it doesn't seem like Shanahan's willing to do that with them. So it's going to be between those 3 guys, and out of them, I don't know who makes it, but I don't see Hurd making this team unless they decide to keep a 7th receiver. But if you keep a 7th receiver, that means you're going to lose probably a defensive lineman, and that's not a good idea. So,
Nope.
Who knows? But I would say as of now, I don't think Hurd makes this team.
Yeah, unfortunately, I've been trying to hold out hope, but I think what really got me last year is when he was hurt on a side field and really not being touched by anyone. And it just, some people genetically, bodies are just not meant for sports. I don't know. Because it just, some people break down like all the time. And then there's people like Frank Gore blows out both of his knees in college and then goes through the rest of his NFL career and is like, he's never hurt. He's always playing. So it's really hard to figure out. What really is weird is football was more physical back when I was a kid. I'm 41 going on 42. So I grew up through the 80s and 90s. The league is more conscious of health and safety now. And to me, it feels like players are more injured now than they were back in the day. And it's, I don't know, some people's bodies are just not meant for the rigors of the NFL, with the cutting and the turning and the, all the movements that are not like regular movements that humans do every day. And then there's some people that just play their whole career, never get hurt. Other than Tom Brady's knee injury, Tom Brady's been a stalwart, other players, they just continue to play. He's offered nothing, and other players have stepped in and shown that they could offer something, possibly like Jennings. I'm a huge Jennings guy. I'm so stoked for that kid, a 7th freaking rounder. That makes me super happy that like this dude was a 7th rounder and he might possibly be in the NFL and make a starting 53. So I'm pulling hard for Jennings. If he does well and plays well in his career, I might have to get a Jennings jersey just to rep a dude like that who's had to fight and get, because last year he was hurt and was on the practice squad. So I'm pulling hard for Jennings because he's showing it. He can offer something. And the Niners have invested a lot of time and a lot of resources in Hurd. And unfortunately, they're not getting any returns. And eventually in business, just like in sports, you got to cut your losses. And it's not a personal thing. It's a business thing. And so if he gets cut, I'm not going to be like, oh man, the Niners did him dirty. No, they gave him his chances. They helped. They tried. It just, Wasn't meant to be, the way I look at it.
Yeah. You know what's really ironic is if Jennings ends up taking that last spot away from Hurd, that's the reason that Hurd ended up leaving Tennessee, was because Jennings took his job there too. So it might happen to him twice, and that's, it's
That sucks.
fortunate. It's fortunate for Jennings, but unfortunate for Hurd.
49ers Ultimate Report with another $5 super chat says, I have to ask your guest a question. Did you ever attend a game at Candlestick?
No, I never did, man. So, I was born in Portland, Oregon, born and raised. And about 3 years ago, I moved out to Tampa. The only games I've ever actually been to in person have been in Seattle, oddly enough. So I've made that drive multiple times to watch the 49ers play in Seattle. But no, I've never made it to Candlestick, and definitely wish I would have. That's for sure.
I've been
Tommy, my guy. Hey, listen,
yep.
If trolling me gets you $2, Aaron, I'm all about it. What's up,
Thank
Tommy?
you. I appreciate it. It's I'm trying to think of the saying. It's collateral damage, I guess.
Right, we'll take it.
So this D line looks to be really, really deep.
Yeah.
It's sad that I'm trying to think of his name. He's going to miss the first 6 weeks.
Willis.
Yeah, he really looked good in the preseason game. That D line looks scary. They still have trouble getting home though with their rush, which drives me at the freaking wall. Like, close in on that quarterback, man. Like, what's the deal? I don't know. But Bosa's, I guess he was back at practice today. I don't want him really touching any type of field until the season starts. We don't need him to practice. He's a beast. But that D-line looks really, really strong. Again, you have to preface everything when saying if they can stay healthy, this could be a scary team defensively, just pass rush wise. The secondary is a whole other ball of wax, but D-line looks whoo. And they haven't played their starters, so which is impressive.
No, not at all. And here's what's cool is D Ford is healthy and looking really good. I mean, they said in the joint practices with the Chargers, he had 4 sacks in one day. And really he is the difference maker. If you look at that 2019 team, when he was on the field versus not on the field, the defense was still dominant. But when he was on the field, it was a whole different level. I mean, we're talking about all-worldly defensive line, one of the best defensive lines of all time, comparatively speaking, when he was playing. And so he's kind of that key cog that takes the 49ers from like maybe the 7th best defensive line to no doubt the best defensive line. If him and Bosa are healthy, good luck. There is not a better defensive line. It's deeper than it's probably ever been. Right. No, they don't have Buckner anymore, which kind of sucks, but they also don't have Solomon Thomas anymore. So the defensive line is really, really stout. That's for sure.
I'm just looking for Kinlaw to show up. I don't know what's been going on with that guy. He disappoints me. He's a lot of hot air. He talks a lot. He kind of reminds me of like a discount Warren Sapp. But where is he? Like, come on, man, show us something. You're one of the biggest human beings I've ever seen. Dude, I'm 6'3", 260. And I would look like a small baby child next to that man. He is humongous. Get on the field, man. Stop talking. All these guys who talk a lot, get on the field. Stop talking. I don't want to hear any more talking. I just want production and winning. Save the talking for after you got that trophy in your hand. But until then, enough.
Yeah, I think the problem with Kinlaw, and I brought this up probably about a month ago, but I really think he's got early onset arthritic knees, and this is coming from, again, I said that I was born and raised in Portland, Oregon. So as a Portland Trailblazer fan, I saw it with Greg Oden. I saw it with Brandon Roy. Myself, I've got arthritis in my knees and in my ankles. And I know what it looks like early on. And with a man that size,
right,
who puts that much force on his lower extremities, I don't think it's good. And they talked about it. There was teams that were worried in the pre-draft process that he might have future arthritic knees. And then to hear that he had surgery in the offseason and his knee swelled up again from flying and had to have it drained, and that's really why he hasn't been practicing. I don't know, man. I mean, you can sell me on something different, but I'm telling you, I think he's got early onset arthritis, and that means that those knees are not going to get any better, unfortunately. And I hope that I'm wrong. I really do. I just don't think I'm wrong on this one.
Thank you, Tommy. Have a good one, brother. You guys have been very generous tonight. Just want to say that it means a lot to me. I feel very loved. The 49er community, like the YouTube community especially,
The best.
is a very supportive. I get little to no hate on my channel, which is weird because I sound like Ray Romano, so you would think right there'd be something them to pick on. Nobody says anything, so I'm blessed. I guess we could talk about depth. We could talk about the running back depth too. That is tasty, man. That is great. I love it. The Niners are like a running back factory. The one thing you can say about the Shanahans is they love their running backs, but they never really spend a lot of resources on them. It's just like scrap heap guy after scrap heap guy, or undrafted guy, and it's just, to me, it's great.
Yeah, and that's why I was kind of surprised that they went and spent so much capital to get Sermon,
right?
Just because they do tend to find these guys, and I feel like they could have found another one. I mean, look at the guys that they let go who are pretty good guys or were good here. You look at Breida. Who was the cat that ended up playing with Breida last year? He was a rookie for Miami. He's still there. He's getting burned. So Ahmed, I think his name is.
Yes.
So they find these guys left and right. So to spend that capital, that was a head scratcher for me, especially when I thought that you really needed defensive back help. And, here's the other thing, and I don't know if you caught this, but Mostert left today's practice with an apparent back injury. That's very worrisome. So, I don't know how serious it is, but anytime you hear back,
yes,
that's
I
never
did not
a
hear
good
that.
thing. Yep.
Oh boy. I mean, Michael Hasties looked amazing in the preseason.
Yes.
Gallman's looked pretty good, but these guys aren't even playing with the starting offensive line, so that makes me happy. I mean, they're dealing with a lot of guys that won't even be on NFL teams. Come another week. Trying to think who else.
Mitchell came back today.
Okay, yeah, we got Elijah Mitchell, and we also have Trey Sermon if he can get on the field.
Yeah.
So yeah.
And then after 6 or so weeks, you got Wilson coming back. So
yeah, I'm a big Jeff Wilson fan. Big time.
Too.
I like Jeff Wilson Jr. He's a bigger dude. I like bigger guys as far as NFL players, like guys that can. I love your scat backs all day, but I like a guy that can just take a 5'9" or 5'11" defensive back who's 180 pounds and just put him into the ground. Those are my kind of running backs. That's just personal to me. I like speed guys too, but I like to see a guy who can run over somebody once in a while. As far as the receivers go, we talked about this. I feel like you said, Jennings is a lock. I think Trent Sherfield is a lock. Sanu, Debo, and Ayuk. I like Nasimba Webster, but I mean, I haven't seen much of him other than that reverse, I think, that he ran, and his wiggle in the return game is kind of nice. He's got a little bit of like a stanky leg. He can move, So, but man, I really wish Hurd could have done something, because that would have been a really nice player to have on the back end. But I think they're good. Do you think it's 6 that they go with, or do you think they might stash somebody?
I think that they got to go with 6. I mean, I was trying to put together the roster myself today, and how many players would they keep? And I mean, that defensive line, it's going to be hard to let anybody walk, right? I mean, there's just so much depth there, and they've shown that they need that depth throughout the year. I mean, last year was more proof of that than any. I think that Bosa is going to be on a pitch count early. We already know Ford's going to be on a pitch count. So you're going to need every bit of depth there. You might, keep possibly 10 guys there. And that's including with Willis not being on the roster because he's suspended for 6 games. So I can't see them unless they only go with 2 quarterbacks, which Shanahan does not like to do. He normally runs with 3. That's the only scenario that I can see 7 kept this year.
One of my concerns is been the secondary. If something was to happen to Verrett, which, there's a chance because he's been pretty injury prone other than last year. But I've been seeing a lot of reports that Diamador Lenore is kind of sneakily made his way into the rotation just by playing. I think he's given up 0 catches in the preseason. And my boy Ambry Thomas, I love him, but he's been struggling. He looks like he needs a lot of work, which is sad because he was drafted before Diamador Lenore. But yeah, what's your concern level with this secondary?
I'm right there with you, Aaron. I think it's very clear that this is not a deep secondary, especially if Verrett does go down, which is more likely than not, unfortunately. And, if or when that happens, whether it's a game or a season, whatever, how are you going to fill those roles? And, Lenore's a player. Again, I'm from Oregon. I'm an Oregon Duck fan. So I knew Lenore was a baller. And when we got him as late as we did, I was very happy with that pick. Now, did I think that he would come in and make an impact right away? No, I thought it would take a season for him to get in there. And it's almost a lock that it's going to take Ambry Thomas, if he ever pans out this season, to end up making an impact. So if Lenore cannot play right away, or if he's not ready right away, what does that secondary look like? And let's also not forget that Mosley's been injured throughout the preseason. You've already got K1, who has only once played 15 games in his career. That's the most he's ever played. He's never played a 16-game season. So there are going to be games missed in the secondary. And what does it look like? Let's say K1 and Verrett both miss a game together. Who plays inside? Does Lenore kick inside? And then who do you have that can play outside? So there's a lot of question marks there for sure. And, that was one of my biggest pushes and why I thought Jimmy should have been let go, whether it was cut or traded. And it's not, it's obviously not going to happen now, but there was some corners that could have been had, whether it was trade, free agency, or whatever. And now you don't have that depth. It's a 17-game season now, not a 16-game season. That absolutely has to be a concern of every 49er fan.
Yeah, it's definitely a concern of mine because the pass rush isn't going to get home every time. It's just
right.
No matter how good you are. The 85 Bears didn't get home every time. My brother's a Dolphins fan. His Dolphins in 85 were the only team to ever beat that team, as good as their defense was. So like every defense is gettable, I think, especially if the pass rush doesn't get home. And it is definitely a concern of mine on the back end. But if, I just don't understand how they didn't make a move in the offseason to bring in any type of cornerback depth at all, like any type of, veteran guy. I will say, though, that the safety situation is looking pretty good, man. They have got a glut of safeties, and it's going to be sad that I have a feeling a guy like Clinton Dix is probably going to get cut. I just have this feeling because I think it's going to be Hufanga, Tart, Ward, and Tavon Wilson, I think are my four. I could be wrong, though. But
we might lose out on Haha and Maven. So that's...
Oh, yeah, I forgot about him, too.
That's kind of crazy, right? So there are some good safeties. I guess that's the one saving grace that we have is if we can sneak one of those guys onto the practice squad, and we probably can. Jimmy Ward, actually, if, I was just thinking through that scenario. So if
I was thinking the same thing.
Yeah, he can come down and play that nickel corner for sure.
Yes,
so he can move into that nickel. We have some safety depth. Now, it's not ideal, but if it's a game or two and he has to play nickel, I'm comfortable with that, So maybe Lenore kicks to the outside, he plays nickel, and that's how they solve that problem. So, looking at it that way, that's definitely encouraging. I don't want to pull Jimmy Ward down, but if they have to do it in a pinch, it can work that way.
One of the guys in the chat said, get Dante Johnson off this team. I am right there with you. How is he on? I don't know, man. He's still in the league. Like, I don't get it. It drives me up the wall. I forgot what I was going to say. I forgot what position group I was talking about, but yeah, hopefully the state, like you said, he can come down in a pinch and play the slot corner, which is, you forget about Ward. I just don't like messing with Ward because I feel like he's better if he's in one position, and that position is safety.
I agree.
I'm a big Ward advocate. I've been since jump. I like Tart too, but Tart's literally like always hurt all the time. So
yeah,
I love these guys as people, but as assets, they're
for
sure. To be desired sometimes.
Well, and maybe the 49ers will tip their hand if they keep a fifth safety, then that'll kind of tell us that that's their plan. That Ward is the guy that'll kick down, and they didn't want to let a Maiden go or a Haha go or whatever that looks like. So I'll be curious to see what they end up doing there. And again, another reason why they can't keep a seventh receiver, because they may want to keep that extra secondary piece.
Think they make any moves in the post 53 cut? Maybe bring in a corner or something, or you think they're pretty much set at roster?
I think corner is an option. I think offensive line might be an option.
Oh yeah.
I think they got to look at all possibilities. That's for sure. At least kick the tires on some guys. Maybe get them in the building, keep them for a couple of days just to learn them and see if they're a fit for later in the season when you have an injury. I think you've got to keep all your options open. That's for sure.
Very disappointed in Aaron Banks, I will say. I had a lot of high hopes for him being like a road grader type, like a trying to think of his name. He used to play for the Cowboys. Larry Allen type of guard who was just unbelievable. And he's anything but that. He looks soft. He looks slow. He just they still have a problem at that right guard position. After everything that they've been through the last couple of years, it's still a problem. So that's another concern of mine too, for sure.
Yeah, I think that's the issue though, Aaron, is that they keep trying to do this square peg round hole type thing, right? They drafted a mauler in Aaron Banks, and they said, "Hey, we want you to lose some weight, and we want you to play in our zone run scheme." Like everybody thought, okay, well, they're going to draft a smaller. They've also taken Sermon. We're going to see a lot more traps. We're going to see some, heavy hitting down the middle type running, and that's great, right? Especially when we get in third and short, fourth and short near the goal line. We're going to be able to mix that in a little bit. But instead, they've done the opposite. They've asked them to lose weight and then learn what it is that they do. And that's questionable to me. And, here's the interesting thing about the 49ers is they always tend to mess up these early draft picks, right? So let's look at this year. We've got Sermon, we've got Ambry Thomas, and we've got Banks, right? You take those three. I would almost rather have, at least at this point, Moore, Lenore, and Mitchell. So they completely redeem themselves with these late kind of hedge your bet picks, but they screw it up early in the draft. And it's like, I don't know how long you can rely on that. And if you continue to let first, second, third rounders be flops, you're not going to be competitive for a long time. So you've got to learn to figure that out and nail that portion of the draft, because they're doing anything but at this point.
Yeah, their scouts seem to get everything right the later you go in the draft.
Yep.
And like their early draft picks over since this regime has took over, have been some of the worst head scratching. They're finally starting to pay attention to medicals for the first time ever after this draft. They kind of talked about it, which is ridiculous. Like, you should have been doing that from jump. If there's red flags on guys, don't take them, no matter how good they are. Yeah. This whole reclamation project thing, like they used to do with Belky when he was here, you can't, like, the chances of a guy who's had like numerous knee injuries or whatever making an NFL career are pretty low. Your Frank Gores don't happen every day.
Right.
That's like a 1 in a million shot, and Frank is one of those guys. But you're right. They always redeem themselves in the later round by, Warner was a third rounder. Kittle was a fifth rounder. Dre Greenlaw was a fifth rounder. Hufanga DJ Jones. Hufanga looks like he might be a player, which is awesome because I really like him. He looks like a poor man's. People are going to say, "Oh, Palomalo," but he really does. The way he blew up that run play on that game last on Sunday, I had a total Palomalo vibe. I was like, "Wow, that guy's so small and so fearless. I love it." Some guys don't want to stick their head in the run game, some corners, but this dude's like, whatever, So I'm big on him. Hopefully, he can get better in his coverage skills and all that other stuff that, was the knock on him, is speed. What is he, like a 4.6 guy, I think? And that was his kind of knock coming out of the draft. But yeah, I'm big on him. I'm bullyish on him for sure. I'm trying to think here. They keep your time to a limit so you don't have to, you can get out of here.
No, you're good, brother.
I guess the rest of it really is just, do you have your 53 man roster projection? Do you have anything you want to see this coming Sunday or whenever this preseason game is? Anything you're looking to watch for? As preseason wraps up?
As I think through it, one of the things that I want to see a major improvement in, special teams.
Yes.
You look at special teams, right? And it's kind of that forgotten third unit.
Yep.
And special teams every year will win you or lose you some games. And
That's
unfortunately,
right.
last year, it was a negative for the 49ers. They lost a couple games because of their special teams. So this year, at the very least, I want that special teams unit to be a net zero. But I really hope that this special teams unit can be a net positive and win a game or two. And so, again, seeing that last wide receiver spot, who's it going to be?
Mm-hmm.
I personally hope it's not James. I'm
Me
cool with
too.
Benjamin. I'm cool with Simba. Either one of those guys, I think, are a little bit more explosive than James, a
They
little
are.
bit less fearless, or more fearless, I guess, than James. And so that's what I'm looking for: is can the special teams be a difference maker? And you just talked about Hafunga, and although he may not get a lot of burn on the defense, at least not initially, I think on special teams he can be an absolute game changer.
Yeah, he
He's
looks
one
like
of
a
those
beast.
guys that can be a missile, fly
Yes.
down the field and flip the field a lot on teams
Mm-hmm.
because he makes a tackle that he shouldn't make. He's the
Nope.
only guy in the area and he stops a big gain. So that's what gets me excited. And as I look at this game, I would say that's probably what I'm looking most at is can this special teams unit put it together and be a difference maker for this team in a positive manner.
Definitely. Amin the Dream says hello. I love that kid. He's
I
good
love
stuff,
Amin.
man.
He's the
For a
best.
young guy, he knows his stuff about the 49ers.
Yeah, he does.
Yeah, the special teams worries me too because, man, I'm like, what's going on with Robbie Gold, man? Like, does he care? that's the thing that I was thinking when he missed that kick. Like, do him and Wisnowski care? Wisnowski, like when the punts during the first preseason game, he was doing so bad. And I'm like, I look at these guys on the sideline. There was a shot of Wisnowski just standing there looking like he'd rather be anywhere but where he was. And I'm like, do these dudes even care? Like special teams, you're right. It's so important. People don't think about it because they think of offense, they think of points, they think of defense, they think of turnovers, sacks. Dude, special teams is so important. If you're giving a team like Kansas City the ball at the 40-yard line every time they get the ball, you might as well just chalk up 7 points. You want to pin people. And like, yeah, this special teams is like super worrisome. Like kickoffs, they barely reach the end zone half the time with Wisnowski. And then Robbie Gold, I mean, he's only good from what, like 40 yards in? Like,
Yeah.
really, yeah, I'm definitely concerned about the special teams. Hopefully the Niners can blow the doors off a lot of teams this year and we don't have to worry about that. But man, when it comes down to a big kick, I'm not the most confident guy in Robbie Gold like I used to be. I'm actually pretty nervous about him. And Wisnowski, I still can't believe that they spent a 4th round pick on a punter. That will never ever be okay with me. A lot of people, I don't think any Niner fan thinks that was a good move. The Niners tried to John Lynch and them tried to defend themselves, and it's just like the more they talk, the more they bury themselves with that move. It just was so bad.
Have they even ran a fake punt with him? I thought that was like the big thing, right? Like,
Yeah, he was like
hey,
this big Aussie or something.
yeah, exactly. He knew how to throw the ball, and they could run some fakes with them. And have they even done it one time?
No.
Like that's how we were sold was, hey, this guy can coffin kick. He'll pin you deep, which he can do. Yeah, as long as he's at a certain spot in the field, he is good at angle kicks and whatnot. But not one fake have I seen. We haven't seen that part of his game. He certainly doesn't have the big leg that can switch a field if he's sitting at his own 20 or 30, which
Yes.
you get from some of the great punters of all time. And, I don't know, man. And the fact that they didn't bring in anybody to compete with them, that's the other thing. It's like, that there's undrafted free agents every year that are looking for spots. Like, bring somebody in to at least push them. And Mitch Wisnowski is on the sideline looking fine and not worried about it because he doesn't have anybody to compete with. What does he got to
Right.
worry about? Like the job's his and he knew it. So what does it matter at this point for him?
Yeah, he's a big looking square jawed guy who doesn't have to worry if he's, his net punting is, really bad. Now, the thing what Gold did to me is just, I feel like the Niners got bullied into keeping him and paying an absorbent contract to an aging kicker who doesn't even want to be there. He wanted to be in Chicago. To me, like I said, I give John Lynch and Kyle Shanahan a lot of props for a lot of things, but man, they've made some bonehead decisions on top of some of the greatest decisions they've made. Like the Nick Bosa decision was a no-brainer, right?
Right.
But like, and the Ayuk pick looks like it's going to be a good pick, but then you see, a pick like, spending a fourth rounder on a punter, or paying an aging punter who doesn't want to be on your team a ton of money just so he'll stay when, there might be better options out there. These guys, for all the good that they do, there's also a lot of things that they do where I just want to put I feel like Dobby from Harry Potter. I just want to smack my head against the door. Like it just drives me up the wall.
Yeah, you're right. For every good decision, it seems like there's two bad ones. And, it is frustrating. And, I'm sure, listen, if we wanted to go across the league, I'm sure we could pick apart other front offices, but this is what we see. We know the ins and outs of every player brought in, every player that's paid, what happened leading up to that. And so we have a real good gauge of where their screw ups are and where their successes are. And you're right. I mean, special teams, for whatever reason, has been largely unlooked at by this regime. Corner has been largely unlooked at by this regime. And quarterback, up until this year, had been largely unlooked at by this regime. And it's like, why? Like, these continue to be glaring weaknesses on your team. Interior O-line's another one. It's like, you guys have so many embarrassing riches at the D-line position. Tight end, you've done great. Your wide receivers are pretty solid, but it's like, man, you have so many glaring weaknesses that you really haven't even tried to address. And when you did, you took reaches and shots. Like, Banks could have been had in the third round, right? Maybe even the fourth, depending on who you're asking. So to take him in the second, it's like, whoa, what are we doing here? To take a Mitch Wisnowski in round 4 as if your roster's completely rounded out.
Right.
There was plenty of guys I'm sure you could have gotten undrafted. You know what I mean? So I don't know. There's definitely some head scratchers. That's for sure.
I think the one thing I'll get to in a second was the linebacker that I wanted to ask you, but I was, I don't know if it was Larry Krueger or if it was Grant. I just forgot my point. I had something and I was waiting for you to stop, and now I've completely lost it. It had something to do with, I don't know, special teams or. I just think that sometimes the egos of Kyle and John, sometimes they get away. They like you said, they make these picks that make you scratch your head. That I just don't think they're like you said, they're not in the position to make. But totally forgot what I was going to say about that other point. But I will say, thanks to Frank Tom Ocean for the $5 super chat. The linebackers to me is interesting because, and this is the last thing I'll ask you. I was really hyped about the Michael Kendricks thing, but now it looks like he's out for the year.
Yeah, turf toe.
I'm just like, damn it! Like they need. I like to see a little depth, but behind Greenlaw and Fred Warner. Hopefully, Azeez Al-Shaair comes back soon, and now he's gone just like that. Like one of the guys that commented, who has his own YouTube channel named Jay in the Bay, he's like, dude, he played like one quarter. Like we just what? Like how? So that Griffith guy, I'm trying to think of his name. I can't.
Jonas Griffith.
He looks like a lock. He has to be, right?
Yes, absolutely. And
Azeez look like good depth pieces
for sure.
Hilliard, I think, was the other guy.
Yeah,
I'm trying to think. Larry Krueger named a couple people post draft linebackers that he thought that the Niners could make this team, and I forgot who the names. I know
Elijah Sullivan, James Burgess, Flanagan Foles, Al-Shaair. Yeah, I mean that's what's his name? Their old safety was playing linebacker.
Marcel Harris.
Yeah, Harris.
He's a good tackler. I never realized it.
Yeah,
just don't have him in coverage.
Yeah,
he can. He is man. Like he put the wood out. I forgot who it was, but man, I was like, wow. Switch your number, bro, and put on a little bit more weight, and please. Like I don't know if they're going to end up keeping him, but he like the linebacker core. As much as I would love to have seen Michael Kendricks, it looks like they're going to be pretty solid. Hopefully,
yeah.
So
I think Jonas Griffith is really. I mean, he looks the full part. I mean, you're talking about
Get a little bit of a Bowman vibe from him looking at him.
Yeah, he's huge. He's huge. He's fast. He's instinctive. Yeah, he's definitely making this team. And again, we talked about special teams. Now, I don't know how we're going to be able to flip the field with our punter per se. I don't know if we're going to be able to flip the field with our kick returners. But I will say, between Hafunga and Jonas Griffith and some other guys on this team, I really think that we can stop and pin some teams deep just from them making a mistake and those guys going down and making big plays. So I'm excited about that.
Thank you, Ultimate Report, again for another $2 super chat. You guys have been freaking awesome. Jay, it's been my pleasure to have you on. I know you got to get on Grant's in a little bit. I figured I'd give you time to drink a glass of water, use the bathroom or whatever.
Thanks, man.
So if you just want to plug whatever your own YouTube channel, what you do, and let people know where to find you.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, first of all, thank you for having me on. And if you're not already subscribed here, definitely do that. Hit the bell notification. Don't ever miss any of his shows. And, you guys showed major love with those super chats. So that was really cool. I'll say for myself, Last Second Sports, pretty easy to find. If you type it into YouTube or Google it, we're the first thing that comes up. If you can give us some love there, that'd be fantastic. I'm the 49er guy, but we have a Cowboys fan, a Detroit Lions fan, and a Broncos fan that we collaborate and made the channel together. Nice. We talk all things sports, mainly NFL. And, so you're going to get a little bit of a different flavor from us. It's not going to be all 49ers. You're going to get some fantasy football and some other things. So you can check us out there. And then, all 49ers Sports Illustrated, I'll write a couple articles a month. So you can check those out. And, I appreciate any support and love that you guys want to give. Thank you.
Thank you, brother. And I want to say, I saw in your bio on Twitter that you are also a at UFC. You're a credentialed media member.
Yes, sir. Yeah.
That's
yes, sir.
Awesome.
Yeah. So big MMA fan, and took a shot at trying to get credentialed a few months back, and they gave it to me. So as awesome. They have fights over here, in Florida area, definitely will look to make some of those. Make a couple trips to Vegas over the next few years, and check that scene out for sure. But it's pretty cool, man. Big MMA guy.
All right, brother. Thanks again for coming on. I'll definitely be watching your channel. I follow Grant. I follow everybody, man. I have to sometimes step away because I get a little bit of an overload of
for sure
having my own channel and then subbing to all my friends and then Grant and everybody. So, but I already subscribed to you. Thanks again, man, for the follow, and which spurred me to ask you, and it all led to this, and it's been fun, very informative, and I would like to do it again sometime in the future. But thanks for coming on. Go do your thing with Grant. I'll probably jump in and watch that as well. And take care of yourself, man. It's been a good one.
Thank you, man. I appreciate it. Thank you, Aaron.
Have a good one. See ya.
You too.